Hello, everyone, and welcome to microbiology. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's Wes, and I'm thrilled to be with all of you here. This course is going to introduce you to some very interesting topics that I hope you all enjoy. First, here's a little bit about myself. That's me in the middle, the overly ecstatic student researcher studying the algal food pyramids in the Arctic of Alaska. I've taught a variety of different courses, including biology, environmental sciences, genetics, and so on. But this is really my bread and butter, as my bachelor's, master's, and PhD all were in microbiology. My main area of research at ASU was in biofuels. My research involved these wee little bacteria that can photosynthesize and capture CO2 and convert that CO2 into commercially relevant products. In other words, stuff humans like and can use, such as biofuels, other oils, and other bioproducts. I specifically worked at genetically engineering or evolving them so that they became more efficient at creating resources and using those resources to make products that we want. Here's an experiment of these wee little beasties being grown under LED lights in the background, with CO2 supplemented air being fed through the tubes at the top there and down into the culture, which they capture. And these particular strains were exceptional at producing biofuels. Here they can be scaled up and grown on a larger platform. This was at the rooftops of ASU. We can even grow them in much larger pools, so it's more of a commercially relevant setup. So you can grow. We grew them out at Polytechnic campus at ASU, if you're aware of that area. And after they're done growing, you can actually see it going on right now here. We can separate those biofuels from the rest of the culture. So instead of just killing them all, it's more like milking the cow sort of a process. You take those biofuels out of the culture and then you can use them. And what's left, that biomass can be used to do a subculturing or another culture. Or when you're all done, you can take all of those cells, we call that biomass, and remove the water and then convert those cells into other products that might be useful as well. So we're trying to use as much as we can out of the system. I've always been passionate about science education and now about being a husband to a wonderful wife and two daughters. And onto the course. Again, you're going to learn a lot from this course, but it's going to come with a lot of effort on your part. The course is all online. It's 4 credit hours, including the lab portion. And because of that all being online, it's going to require you to be good at independent study. So you will need to review your schedules and be sure that you can assign enough time for the what we call the seat time. That would be watching the lecture videos or going through the materials prepared for you for the lab, and then doing the required work around that on your own. Now, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I don't know if there's a problem or there's something that you're not getting unless you let me know. And I do hold office hours. I hold them every Wednesday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. virtually. There's a catch though, you have to schedule in advance. I don't sit down for those hours just staring at a black screen, waiting for someone to pop up. So you need to schedule it at least 24 hours in advance, is my cutoff. To do so, it's rather simple. Just send me an email, just send me a message through the Canvas inbox system with the time you'd like to meet in the day. Make sure it's more than 24 hours in advance. And if that time is available, I'll just simply reply back with a Zoom invite link. And if it's not available, I'll reply back with my working schedule for that day, and you can pick one of the slots for the time to meet. I would also ask that you include in your message a little bit about what you would like to meet for so that we're not kind of spinning our wheels there, and we can get right down the brass tacks and take care of what you need. If you've never used Zoom before and you feel a little intimidated about that, don't worry about it. When you click the link, there's 2 options to sign in or to sign up. And the sign up is really easy. You just need to provide it with an email and you can make an account rather quickly. Now, to be successful in this class, you are going to be required to check both your Scottsdale email and your Canvas for information. I send out announcements, and if you miss an announcement, it's on the student to make sure that they missed it. So not reading an announcement is not an excuse. Not getting lab data or reminders because you didn't check is not an excuse for a online class. That's like using an excuse. Well, I didn't show up to class that day, so how did I know? So checking your email is quite easy. Of course, you just go to your student email using the system, the www.scottsdalecc.edu/your name, or some of you might be using the Maricopa system. That's all good and fine. However, I will be utilizing the Canvas inbox system for communications, which is what the school prefers. So the Scottsdale email, I get a lot of junk mail through there, and I might miss something. But I check my Canvas every day, basically. And if there's a message in my inbox in my Canvas system, I know it's from one of you, and I know it's important, and I get to it. There are some required materials for this course. Fortunately, the textbook is free and it's available online, so you don't need to buy the book. And you might need to use it sparingly, but most of everything that's required in the lecture material is something that I present to you. Also, you should be able to use the Google Cloud products such as Google Docs and the Microsoft 365 products like Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, things like that. They are freely available to all students. So Scottsdale Community College provides those resources to you. So there should be no excuse for trying to submit something through an Apple version of the software, which I do not accept. It must be through Microsoft, like Word document, or even Adobe is allowed from time to time if it's in a readable text format. Now, we just talked about why you will need Zoom. Zoom will be necessary for you to meet with me if you need to meet with me. And Respondus Lockdown Monitor, we will talk more about, but this is how you will take your exams through this software program. SnapGene is a software program that you will use to do 2 labs, and you will get a limited trial that expires, and you have only a few weeks to use it. So don't go off and try and get ahead by downloading that program just yet. And obviously, you need a computer. You don't just need a random computer that you can go use at, certain times of the day. You need to have your own computer. The reason for that being is you need to be able to have permission to download software onto it. Respondus Lockdown Monitor and SnapGene, namely. And that Respondus Lockdown Monitor, it's really important that you download it on your own computer. And the reason why is if when you do your practice quiz, that allows you to practice how to follow the rules and to make sure your system's working properly. And it is the student's responsibility, again, because I'm not going to drive to everyone's house, to make sure that it's all working for the system, so you're ready to go when the day of the exams happens, and everything should go smoothly. On that note, we're going to go over the exams a little bit here. The exams, I don't have a cumulative exam. We just focus on the particular unit that we just completed, and that includes both lecture and labs. Exams can be in any sort of format, those questions. They can be multiple choice matching, fill in the blank, essay questions, or problem solving questions. You are required to write in complete sentences, use proper grammar, and usage of the English language. Each exam will be available for 4 days. That's online. If you have a special reason why you need to take it at the SCC Testing Center, you really only have 2 days because I have them available from Friday through Monday. So if you need to take it in person, just be aware you are going to have to schedule it either on the Friday or the Monday, and they're not open for Saturday or Sunday. Again, the formats of the exams can vary in what you're given there. You can do a makeup exam, but to do so you have to have an official excuse, so a doctor's note, court summons, etc. Otherwise, it's going to be your responsibility to avoid scheduling conflicts. Just because it's online doesn't mean you don't have to take the exams within the specified dates. The course is asynchronous, and that means you can do the studying when you want to. I have the lectures pre-recorded. You don't have to show up at a specific time to sit down and watch those. But we do have um, dates at which things are due. All right. So let's talk about that Respondus software program that I was talking to you about earlier. It's a program. The specific one we're using is called Respondus Lockdown Monitor Browser. So it locks down your computer so that you're not opening other tabs. And there's a monitor through a webcam. So you'll need a webcam so that you can be monitored throughout the exam. And then it records that and provides it to me so that I can curate them, which I do thoroughly. So this provides a secure, high integrity environment for taking online exams. And it allows me to have a certain level of confidence that we have a proper testing environment where students aren't using outside resources. So this is going to require your software, a desktop or a laptop. Tablets are not allowed because there's a variety of issues with the tablets. I'm not going to get into them. Tablets aren't allowed. You can use a laptop, a desktop of your own, or you can check one out with SCC, making sure you have permissions to download those programs onto it. A microphone. You have to have sound on, or else the exam will be that will be considered to be in violation of the exam, and you have to have that webcam. All exams in this course will require the use of that software program. And there's a link on how to get it set up and a practice one. So everything should run nice and smooth when you go to take the exam. And prior to the exam, what you'll do is you'll do a room scan of your area. So you'll need to keep that in mind. If this is something that you're not comfortable with, then you can decline wanting to use it and you can just take the exams at the testing center. However, you're going to need to reach out to me several weeks in advance of that. So if you want to take this first exam and the rest of the exams in person at the testing center, you should probably let me know this week so that I can make accommodations for you to take it at the testing center if you feel uncomfortable with a room scan or it's something you feel like you can't do. I'm going to go. We'll talk a little bit about how to do the environmental check, the room scan. And that's a very important piece for you to show me what's going on in the area. If you're caught violating any of the rules, that it means you're not following the rules for doing a proper room scan, then you're going to be given a 0 for that exam, and you'll also be required to take all further exams in person at the testing center. So just a heads up that you need to be extra careful about these rules. This is, I find, to be very important. And if we can't make sure that we're holding the integrity of the exam, you'll have to take them in person. So we're going to start off this semester early with doing a Respondus Lockdown Monitor quiz. The purpose of the quiz is to make sure your software is functioning, to make sure that you can do the room scan correctly, and that you follow the rules of the exams so that you feel comfortable going into that first exam and doing it. So you will open up the quiz and it's going to give you just instructions for how to download the software and then take the practice quiz. So let's talk about doing that room scan. This is, again, it's very important to get it right. So this is why I spend a little bit of time talking about it here. What you'll do is it'll ask you to do a 360 degree view of your environment with the webcam. Make sure this camera is showing, imagine that you're in my shoes and you're trying to show me that there's no other materials in the room. So you're going to want to hold that camera perfectly horizontal. You're going to want to move it smoothly and a flat view across the room at eye level to show me the entire room, especially what you can look at, not behind you, but in front of you. And after you do that 360-degree view, I need to be able to see what's around your desk area or your workspace area if it's not a desk. So you're going to tilt the webcam down very slowly and carefully, show me your entire desk and down around your lap area so that I can see that you don't have any notes, even blank pieces of paper, because those can be maybe flipped over or there can be a stack of them. They're hidden very carefully. Maybe you're a magician and you're able to produce things from those blank pieces of paper. So there's no even blank pieces of paper allowed. And no one else can be in the room with you. I've had many issues with that, trust me. And additionally, if you were to take a test at the testing center, people can't be blasting music or audio. So you can't have headphones. You cannot have any external audio playing as well, and your microphone has to be on. So don't plug in your headphones to provide me with audio. It needs to be unplugged, and the speaker needs to be on your computer. All right. And you can't have, again, any notes, any papers. You can't have a separate screen at your desk. If there's a separate screen, you need to turn it around. Or if you can't turn it around, I require you to take a black piece of paper and shadow it out so that you can't read anything. Not a white piece of paper that can be seen through. It's got to be a black piece of paper or a blanket thrown over it. And we need to have a well lit room as well. So make sure that the the room that you're taking the exam, is well lit. Make sure that your webcam is centered, and so the software program can watch your eye movement as well, because you need to keep your eyes on the exam the entire time as well. Don't wander your eyes off screen. Okay, sorry about that, but very particular about those exams. Now, the lab assignments, you'll have 12 lab assignments. You can look at the lab schedule to see the due dates there, and you're going to have one library project worth 80 points. So you have a library lab and then a lab project that's built off of that, where you write a report on a disease that's caused by a pathogen. You're going to have 4 combined lab and lecture exams. Again, they're not cumulative. They're just based on their own unit, the previous unit you did, and they're going to be worth 100 points each. Again, closed notes, internet, friends, etc. No outside resources allowed. We have lecture videos recorded. They're on YouTube. When you're in Canvas, you can click to watch their lecture video, but it's probably going to take you to this blank screen that says that it wasn't able to play the video. What you need to do is click on it, and it'll take you. So if you click right here, it'll take you then to the YouTube URL, and that's where you can watch the video. Now, I have a lot of videos up on YouTube, and sometimes students watch the wrong year, because they get on YouTube and they subscribe to my channel maybe, and they're just watching whatever year's videos. But there's embedded questions within these videos. So always use the link provided in Canvas to watch that video so that you're watching the right video with the right checkpoint questions. Throughout the lecture, you're going to have a series of checkpoint questions to make sure you're watching videos and understanding the content, and so that you can kind of test yourself and how well you're understanding these things. What you want to do is you want to have something out so that you can watch the lecture videos and checkpoint questions, and then write down the questions and the answers. There's no makeups with these checkpoint questions. You just have to turn them on time. If anything happens to you, there's no method for making them up. It's kind of like participation points for being in class. Again, write or type each question down, and then you'll submit it later on Canvas. Again, these are just YouTube videos. There's not a place to submit it in the YouTube video. Now on Canvas, it's going to look a little bit weird. You're not going to find the questions written out on Canvas. You had to watch the video to see the questions. Canvas just lets you submit the answer. So it'll look something like this. Here's the quiz, here's the instructions. It tells you go watch the video, come back here and submit your answer. So question 1, it just gives you A, B, C, or D. And if you had watched the video, you know the question and you can answer it here. Okay, so let's go over attendance a little bit here. Again, you're expected to stay current with, we have weekly assignments that are due, and our exams have a 4-day window to be completed within that time frame. You can miss up to 2 labs maximum, but labs are an integral part of science, and so if you miss more than 2 labs, you're going to receive an automatic failing grade no matter how well you've done on the rest of the material. Labs have due dates. They'll be closed after their due date. However, unlike checkpoint questions or exams, you can get permission to submit it late, up to 1 week late after the due date, and you'll receive 10% deduction points, penalty points per day late. Okay, academic integrity is, as you could probably get the feeling based upon our discussion about exams, I find really important. And all writing assignments will be screened for plagiarism. Everything has to be written in your own words. That means that you shouldn't be Googling for answers or using AI to answer the questions. Use the textbook and the lecture to get the information. The first infraction for this sort of violation in the classroom, it's going to result in a 0 score on the assignment. So if I run it through and I find that you're using AI or you're Googling the web and writing their answers down, you're going to receive a 0 for it. And if this was an exam, and if you had a violation for the exam, any violation of those exams, another requirement is you're going to have to take all of them at the testing center so that we can ensure that this doesn't happen again. The second infraction, though, will be failure in the class due to academic integrity. And I have just a brief little example here because sometimes students are a little bit confused about what writing in your own words means. So let's say there's a question in the class that says, what's environmental science? And the student decides to just go on the internet and just Google it. They end up at Britannica.com. Here's the definition they provide. And the student decides, okay, I'm going to use this definition, but I'll just spend my brain power on just changing a few of the words. So instead of saying environmental science, they just change it to it is the, and then they reuse the same sort of definition here. And they're like, oh, well, instead of saying draws, I'll use a synonym. I'll say looks at, and I'll change the order of the words. That will make it harder to find as plagiarism. I'll change the order of the words. And maybe, I'll change some clauses or something around like that. This is going to get flagged. And this would not be writing in your own words. This is just not really thinking about it, just taking the answer online and trying to mask that they did it themselves or that they watched the lecture. However, this student's answer actually looked at the lecture itself and was able to produce a good answer based upon the lecture content. It's not just lifting it from an outside source. Now, some of you may have special circumstances. You might be a student athlete. You might have registered accommodations. Alert me today, but you have to alert me right away so that we can make the proper steps regarding that. We don't provide accommodations retroactively. We can only provide accommodations into the future. Okay, now I have a few tips for learning in this course. One is to reach out to me regularly so I can help you. I don't know how many times I have students that just submit an assignment and they say, I don't know. I was confused by this. Well, that's a little too late, right? So just reach out to me. I'd love to meet with you in person, get to know you. It's online. It's not as personable, and I really like to get to know my students. And also, if you want a letter of recommendation for me down the road, if I haven't met you and I don't know you, it's really hard to write a good letter of recommendation for you. So for several reasons, it's a great benefit to you as a student. I strongly recommend that before you break into a new chapter, that you go ahead and review your last lecture's PowerPoint or notes or a study guide that you might have developed from that. I recommend you become an active learner. It's when I'm not there. And one of the disadvantages of an online course is I have this recorded lecture and you can't ask questions. So I strongly recommend you stop the video and ask questions to yourself, or maybe you jot them down and then email or send them to me, and we can go over them or schedule that office hours to answer the questions. And then many of you might be new to college, or maybe you have problems with daily studying habits, but you really want to develop daily studying habits. Make sure that you're studying bit by bit every day. I like to say that learning is like doing a sport. You wouldn't expect to just train for a sport the day before the game or the competition. Studying routinely every day until you reach that game is going to make sure that you're best able to be successful. Also, there's a lot of information in these slides. So I don't recommend taking notes the first time you watch the PowerPoint slides. I recommend just listening to it the first time. And then that maybe the second or the third time you take notes on whatever still isn't sticking, it's going to be quite a bit that doesn't stick. And so if you just watch the video the first time and you take notes, you might write everything down and then you're writing your own textbook, and that's not efficient. And when you go to study it, your lens is too broad, and you're studying too much material, a lot of which you probably already kind of get the gist of after watching a couple of times. I am a huge fan of 3x5 note cards. There's a lot of tedious memorization in a class like this. And so, how do you memorize all those vocabulary words and concepts? Well, write the vocabulary word on one side and the definition on the other. Something like that, where you can quiz yourself constantly. You can take those note cards with you. They're mobile. They're not. It's not as easy to do that with a laptop or a desktop or with a notebook, but 3x5 note cards you can keep in your back pocket, in your purse, wherever, whatever you pack with you. You can always have them by your side, and you can use little pieces times throughout the day in order to study. Okay, let's talk about time dedication for a class like this. Now, college definitions for time dedication is 2 to 3 hours of independent study time per credit hour of course per week. So what's that mean? Well, BIO205 is a 4 credit hour course. And so if you were to study 2 or 3 hours per credit hour, you're looking at 8 to 12 hours per week, depending on how, on your own talents. I'll put it that way. Now, this and study habits too. If you study all at once, then it's going to be a lot on the higher side. If you spread it out through the week, a lot on the more on the lower side. This is an online course, so we don't have lectures and labs in person. So we also need to add in that time as well. And in general, they say about 1 credit hour equals 1 hour of in-seat time. So again, this is a 4 credit hour course. So we're looking at adding another 4 hours onto the 8 to 12. So in total, you'd expect about 12 hours to 16 hours per week for a course like this. Now, how do we study 12 to 16 hours? You want to build a schedule out so you know what you need to do every day, and you can hold yourself accountable to that. And if you're in a deficit for that day, you know how much you need to make up the following day. And again, I recommend studying throughout the week. You'll actually have to study less. So it's of benefit to you, and you'll remember more and understand more. So here's a general outline here for a weekly study. You can use it if you want, or build your own. Maybe you work throughout the weekdays and you have more time on the weekends, and that's when you like to do more studying. You can fit it to your own needs. But you can see something like this. It adds up to about 12 hours per week and a couple hours every day throughout the week, and you're all set. Okay, and something else I like to talk about in microbiology is standards in the course. Many of you, I've based upon many discussions I've had with students, I'd say probably 90% or more of you are going into some sort of medical field. Most of you going into nursing in this course. And if not nursing, maybe you want to be a PA or something, and your standards are going to be even higher for admissions. So here's a presentation on those standards. So if say some of you want to go to become a get your bachelor's of science in nursing, well, Northern Arizona University, the minimum requirement to even apply is a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale. And again, that doesn't mean that you're going to get in. That's just to even apply. And applicants actually tend to have far above a 3.0 GPA in order to get in. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Now, I couldn't get Northern Arizona, but I could get University of Arizona. And so you can see on the left, there's the admissions criteria, which is all great. But let's look at the data for acceptance. For acceptance, the average GPA is a 3.9. The average HESI score, which is the entrance exam to get a BSN, was a 93%. And biology makes up about 30% of the HESI course. And so, and there's a lot of overlap with this class and other biology courses. So that's, I just want to emphasize how important it is to do well in your biology courses, microbiology included, which is a foundational course for something like nursing, which involves studying how the cells of the body work and diseases that are caused by pathogens. Here's Arizona State University. It's kind of more of the same here. We're looking at a average GPA of about 3.8 in your competency courses, and then you have to do quite well on your entrance exams as well. Okay, enough of that. Let's go over a first week to-do list here. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. There's going to be an introduction discussion board that I'd like everyone to participate in. And you're going to have to complete chapter 1 and chapter 2 lectures, jot down the questions, and submit them on Canvas. Due dates are available online. And then you're going to need to take that Respondus lockdown monitor quiz, open the quiz, take the instructions for downloading the software, and taking that quiz. Let's do a quick review of what the schedule looks like. This represents the first unit of the schedule, and I'm just going to point out some of the highlights here. The first one is your introduce yourself discussion board. This, unlike a lot of other due dates, this is very important. It's due this very first week, August 29th. And the students that don't complete this are going to be dropped from the course. So make sure you get this done. This is my attendance for the first week, so I can drop any students that don't belong in the course. And as you can see here, this is a kind of an extra assignment, this Respondus practice quiz that everyone needs to take and complete by next week, by September 5th. And that's a Friday. Now, if you drop down to week 4, you're going to see this Winogradsky column materials collected. This is maybe the biggest lab of the semester. And what you're going to do is you're going to set up your own experiment at home, and you're going to need to collect some materials for this. It gives students an excellent opportunity to get out in the field, get some hands-on experience, and you're going to collect a soil sample, and you're going to get some water bottles and some newspaper clippings and a couple of eggs, just some very basic materials. but it does take a lot of time to go get that soil sample for some of you. So it has its own special day where you go out and collect that on top of the already present Lab 3, Control of Microbial Growth, which is a virtual lab. So make sure you make some time and space to go out and do this lab here on a day where you have a good amount of time. Don't put it off for too long. And then lastly, we can see that we have that first exam open up. It opens up October 3rd, that's the Friday, and then it bleeds into the following Monday, where you can take it if it doesn't work out for you on that first Friday. And as you can see, if you're ever confused about what exam covers what chapters and what labs, you can see in the schedule I listed out for you. So it says exam 1 under the lecture column there. We can see exam 1 covers chapters 1, 3, 9, 13, and labs 1 through 3. Here is unit 2. So you can see I held up the previous units, week 5 that had exam 1. So we can see week 2 is continuing on here. Under week 5, lab 4 is present, and that lab 4 is the actual setup of your Winograsky column. So we kind of go get the materials the week before, and then this week you're going to set up those Winograsky columns. And we'll have more on that later. And week 7 is the week that I want you to download SnapGene and set up your registration. Okay, you're not going to get, they have a free version that it doesn't expire, and it has a limited capacity of tools that you can use. You're going to download the full suite SnapGene that just has an expiration to it. It lasts a few weeks, I believe. So don't jump the gun on this one. Wait until that comes. Now, you're going to do a library lab. And in that library lab, you're going to do some research on a pathogen that causes a disease. And so you need to request a topic. And so on top of your lab 7, you're going to reach out to me through Canvas, and you're going to request a pathogen that causes a disease. And I'm going to screen all of those, and some of you will be approved. Some of you may have chose a pathogen that someone else chose. Whoever comes to me first will get that pathogen, and then I will reach out to you and say, hey, this one's already taken. What's your second and third topic? And we'll select one of those other pathogens that hasn't been taken already. Okay, and here I skipped the third unit. This is the final unit of class, and this is going to run through diseases of the immune system, but then a bunch of different diseases out there. So for many students, this is their favorite unit because it covers, once we lay down the foundation, it covers a lot of different pathogens out there, diseases. As you will note, the final exam is going to be on finals week, and we're going to wrap that up on the 15th. So we're going to be done hopefully a little bit early. One other thing I'd like to point out is that on week 15, that is Thanksgiving. The last half of class is Thanksgiving week. And so if you look at week 14, December 8th actually is a Monday that assignment is due. Those assignments are due. So you have the Thanksgiving weekend and then the following Monday to complete those assignments. So you don't make assignments due on that holiday. Okay, and then lastly here, we're going to be wrapping up our Winograsky column experiment, part 2. So I told you this was a rather large lab. This is a project which you're going to do weekly observations, and you're going to keep a lab journal on what happens week by week, and then you'll submit a report that includes that lab journal and a 2-page summary that kind of explains everything all together about your observations. All right, so that's all I have to say, and I hope you found that informative. If you have any questions, again, please reach out to me. I'm really looking forward to reading all of your introductions and the introduction discussion board.